There are many forms of power in this world. Some are loud: armies, money, influence, titles, and some are silent: discipline, clarity, self-mastery. But among all forms of power, one stands above the rest: the power of questions. A sword can defeat a man. A question can defeat an illusion. A weapon can conquer a body. A question can conquer ignorance, ego, and false certainty. This is why the Stoics admired Socrates, not because he was the strongest, nor the richest, nor the most politically influential, but because he possessed a rare kind of strength: the ability to dismantle any argument without raising his voice, losing his composure, or becoming a slave to anger. Socrates never won debates in the way most people understand victory. He won because he never played the same game as others. While others entered debates to protect their pride, defend their opinions, or prove their superiority, Socrates entered to pursue only one thing: truth. And this pursuit gave him a supernatural calmness, one that the Stoics later turned into a complete philosophical discipline. To the untrained eye, Socrates seemed passive, but to anyone who understood the mind, he was doing something extraordinary. He did not argue. He did not threaten. He did not try to dominate. He asked questions: precise, sharp, strategically placed, and devastating to any belief built on weak foundations. A question is invisible. It carries no aggression. And yet it cuts deeper than a blade because it forces a person to confront the limits of their own mind. Arguments attack the opponent. Questions attack the assumption. Arguments make people defensive. Questions make people introspective. Arguments fight the outer layer. Questions strike the root. Socrates understood something most people still fail to understand today. If you remove one false assumption, the entire illusion collapses on its own. He didn't need to humiliate anyone. He simply invited them to walk the path of their own reasoning. And when they reached the edge, they realized with horror that the ground beneath their belief was nothing but sand. Why questions always defeat arguments? To understand why Socrates never lost, we must understand a psychological truth. A statement can be wrong. A question cannot. A statement exposes you. A question protects you. A statement triggers ego. A question slips past ego and goes straight to reason. The moment you make a claim, you create a target for others to attack. But when you ask a question, you force the other person to reveal their foundation, and most foundations are far weaker than they appear. Most people do not think. They repeat. They do not reason. They recycle. They do not examine beliefs. They inherit them. They live not by truth, but by mental autopilot, absorbing opinions from media, society, culture, family, trends, or emotional impulses. This is why the Socratic method remains terrifyingly effective even 2,400 years later. Because most people still do not know why they believe what they claim to believe. When Socrates asked someone a question, he wasn't attacking them. He was simply turning on the light in a room they had lived in all their life, but never truly looked at. And in that light, their certainty dissolved. Question number 1. How do you know that's true? The first blade of reasoning. This question is small, simple, and almost disarmingly gentle, but it is one of the most destructive questions ever created. Most people mistake confidence for truth. They mistake repetition for proof. They mistake emotion for logic. So when you ask, "How do you know that's true?" you are not doubting them. You are giving them a chance to see the cracks in their own thinking. Here is the uncomfortable reality. Most people cannot answer this question. They say things like, "I heard it somewhere. It's obvious. Everyone knows that. That's just how things are." These answers reveal one thing. They have never examined their own beliefs. Socrates knew this flaw in human thinking, and this is why he used this question as the first strike. The story of the young Athenian. One warm afternoon in Athens, a confident young man confronted Socrates publicly. He said with arrogance, "Your philosophy is useless. Only reality matters. Truth is obvious." Socrates didn't react. He didn't get offended. He didn't lecture. He simply asked, "How do you know that's true?" The young man paused, caught off guard. Finally, he said, "Because everyone says so." Socrates leaned in gently and replied, "Everyone, or just you?" The young man fell silent, and in that silence, he felt something he had never felt before: the collapse of unexamined certainty. He walked away quietly, because for the first time in his life, someone had forced him to think. Applying question 1 in real life. This question becomes a powerful tool when used calmly and intentionally. When someone says, "This task is impossible," ask, "How do you know? Impossible based on whose experience?" "You will fail if you try this." Ask, "What makes you so certain?" "He is a bad person." Ask, "How do you know that? By your experience or someone else's?" Then, remain silent. Silence is your ally. It forces them to hear their own thoughts echo back. Advanced form. Flipping logic upside down. To truly corner false beliefs, ask, what would have to be true for your statement to be false? This question does something remarkable. It forces the other person to consider a new dimension of reality they have never explored. Many people freeze at this point because they suddenly see blind spots they never noticed. When someone believes an idea with absolute certainty, this question shakes the belief from the inside. It is logic turned into a weapon, not to harm, but to awaken. Question 2. What are you assuming? The hidden layer that holds every argument together. Every argument, no matter how loud, emotional, persuasive, logical, or passionate, rests on a set of invisible assumptions. The mistake people make is attacking the visible part of the argument, but the Stoics and Socrates attacked the invisible part. Beliefs collapse from underneath, not from the top. Most people don't realize their arguments depend on assumptions they have never examined. For example, people should go to college because college leads to good jobs. This sounds reasonable until you reveal the hidden assumptions beneath it. You assume everyone wants the same kind of job. You assume the value of life is measured in money. You assume college always leads to success. You assume success follows a linear path. When these assumptions are exposed, the argument begins to fall apart, not through attack, but through heightened awareness. Awareness destroys illusion. Observation destroys ignorance. Questions destroy false confidence.
There is a silent war taking place inside you, a war not seen by others, not spoken aloud, not acknowledged in your daily routine, but felt in every moment when you promise yourself one thing and do another. It is the war between the life you have and the life you are capable of living. Most people lose this war long before they realize they are fighting it. They surrender, not in dramatic defeat, but through a series of small, quiet concessions. I'll do it tomorrow. It's not the right time. I'm too tired today. I just need a break. I'll start when I feel better. These sentences seem harmless. They feel harmless. But they are the front line where your potential is silently assassinated. What destroys a man is rarely one catastrophic failure. It is the accumulation of tiny daily surrenders to comfort, laziness, and fear. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed the greatest enemy of human potential is not external hardship, but internal resistance. And in part 2, that is what we confront, the resistance inside you that seeks to keep you average. The invisible enemy, resistance. Resistance is not a feeling, it is a force that rises inside you whenever you attempt something meaningful. When you try to wake up early, when you sit down to work, when you begin a new habit, when you challenge your comfort, when you start something that would benefit your future self. It appears instantly, automatically, predictably. The Stoics taught that every human action, no matter how noble, is met with an equal and opposite internal force, trying to pull you back into comfort. This is why your mind feels heavy even before the task begins. It is not weakness, it is not laziness, it is resistance, and resistance is universal. But here is the truth Stoics lived by. Resistance is strongest right before you act, and powerless once you begin. The moment you take the first step, the weight disappears. The mind clears. Momentum replaces hesitation. This is why disciplined people seem superhuman, not because they lack resistance, but because they do not negotiate with it. The myth of the right time. One of the most dangerous illusions in your life is the belief that there will be a perfect moment to start, a better day, a calmer season, a moment of clarity, a surge of motivation. You believe your future self will rescue you. You believe later will be easier. But Marcus Aurelius wrote, "There is never a time more suitable than now." Why? Because the conditions of your life will never stop shifting. You will always be busier than you want to be. You will always feel less motivated than you hoped. You will always have problems, responsibilities, distractions. The perfect moment does not arrive. It is created. You do not wait for the right time. You choose a time and make it right. The procrastinator survives on hope for a better future. The Stoic builds the future by acting in the present. The lie of "I'll start tomorrow." Tomorrow is the most seductive lie you tell yourself. It feels responsible. It feels organized. It feels like a plan. But it is not a plan. It is a delay tactic, a psychological anesthetic that allows you to avoid action and still feel optimistic. Here is the tragic truth. You don't procrastinate because you don't have time. You procrastinate because you fear the discomfort of transformation. Tomorrow is simply a shield that protects you from the emotional friction of starting. But the Stoics taught a brutal truth. The future is not promised, but the present is already slipping away. Your life is not a timeline. It is a burning fuse, and every delay shortens it. And one day you will look back and realize that the person you could have become died in the space between "I should" and "I will." The false identity of laziness. You are not lazy. People think they are lazy because they lack action. But laziness is not the root problem. It is a symptom. The real problem is this: you have built an identity around comfort. Your brain is wired to repeat what feels safe, easy, familiar. Every time you surrender to comfort, you strengthen your identity as someone who avoids responsibility. And identity is powerful, because once you see yourself as lazy, you act like it. But the Stoics offer a liberating truth. Identity is not discovered. Identity is created through repeated action. You become disciplined by acting disciplined. You become consistent by acting consistent. You become powerful by acting powerful. Identity follows action, not the other way around. So the solution is simple. Act like the person you want to become, even before you feel like him. Actions shape identity. Identity shapes destiny. This is the Stoic chain of transformation. Distraction is a self-inflicted wound. In the ancient world, a distracted mind was rare. Silence was abundant. Thought was deep. Focus was natural. Today, it is the opposite. Your attention is under siege from every direction. And the most dangerous part? You participate in your own sabotage. You voluntarily give your mind away. You hand your focus to devices, entertainment, noise, stimulation. You fear boredom so deeply that you fill every quiet space with distraction. But boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is the doorway to discipline. In silence, your priorities become clear. In silence, your mind resets. In silence, your conscience speaks. Distraction keeps you from meeting yourself. And the longer you avoid yourself, the more your potential decays. The Stoics carved out silence deliberately. They engaged in solitude as a spiritual discipline, because the mind that cannot be alone with itself cannot command itself. Your distractions are not entertainment. They are chains. Break them, or they will break your future. The cost of unfinished promises. Think about the number of promises you have broken to yourself, the goals you said you'd achieve, the habits you swore you'd maintain, the routines you began and abandoned, the commitments you postponed, the dreams you delayed. Every broken promise weakens your self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation of discipline. You cannot command yourself if you no longer trust yourself. Stoics believed that integrity begins internally. Before you can lead a family, before you can lead a team, before you can lead a community, you must lead yourself. So ask yourself, if you spoke to a friend the way you speak to yourself, making promises, breaking them, making promises again, would that friend trust you? Would they follow you? Would they believe anything you say? Probably not. So, why should you believe yourself? To reclaim discipline, you must restore internal trust. And this begins with one rule. Never make a promise to yourself that you are not prepared to keep.
There is a moment in every transformation where the war shifts, not because the enemy disappears, but because you finally become stronger than the enemy within. This moment is not dramatic. It does not feel like victory. It feels like awakening. It feels like stepping into a version of yourself that has been waiting for years to be acknowledged. This final part is not about exposing your excuses. You did that. It's not about confronting your fears. You've already stood before them. This final part is about becoming, about rising, about forging the version of you that acts with intention, lives with courage, walks with discipline, and governs himself like a Stoic king. Part 3 is not about destruction. It is about construction, not about battle, but about identity. This is where you build yourself. The birth of a new identity. You cannot rise by staying who you were. You cannot transcend with the same habits, the same thinking, the same emotional patterns. Every transformation in history begins with identity. A soldier becomes a warrior the moment he sees himself as one. A philosopher becomes wise the moment he commits to truth. A leader becomes great the moment he places responsibility above ego. Identity is not a title. It's a decision. The Stoics believed this deeply. You become what you repeatedly choose. Not what you wish for, not what you imagine, not what you talk about. Identity equals repeated action plus repeated values. Your old you was built the same way, through repeated avoidance, repeated procrastination, repeated surrender to comfort, repeated underestimation of self. And so, the new you must be forged the same way, through opposite repetition. You show up. You follow through. You do the work. You honor your word. You choose discipline over impulse. You choose progress over pleasure. You choose purpose over distraction. You do it once, then twice, then again, then again, then again. Until the behavior is no longer effort, it becomes identity. This is the foundation of the reborn self. 2. Discipline is not something you do, it's who you become. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think it's a tool, a tactic, a skill, a technique. But the Stoics knew discipline as something different, something deeper, something sacred. Discipline is self-respect in action. When you keep the promises you make to yourself, you rise. When you break them, you shrink. Discipline is not about pain. It's not about forcing yourself through misery. It's not about punishing the self. Discipline is the highest form of self-love because it gives you the life you want instead of the life you tolerate. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now. Discipline is creating a life that your future self will thank you for. And here is a truth most never learn. The disciplined man lives with more freedom than the undisciplined man. Why? Because the disciplined man is not enslaved by impulse, by cravings, by fear, by mood, by laziness, by distractions. He commands himself. And the man who commands himself needs no other master. 3. Systems over emotions, the Stoic way. The average person relies on emotion. The Stoic relies on structure. Emotion says, I don't feel like doing it. Structure says, I do it whether I feel like it or not. Emotion asks, what is my mood today? Structure asks, what is my duty today? Emotion says, I'll try. Structure says, I do. This is why Stoics thrived even under extreme pressure. Their life was built not on feeling, but on duty. Marcus Aurelius wasn't motivated every morning. He didn't wake up enthusiastic to lead an empire. He woke up to responsibility. Epictetus, born into slavery, was not inspired to rise. He acted in accordance with principle. Seneca did not wait to feel wise. He practiced wisdom until he became it. If you want to rise, you must design a structure stronger than your moods. The enemy is not difficulty. The enemy is inconsistency. The reborn self is consistent because he follows systems, not feelings. 4. Mastering the mind, the Stoics' greatest skill. Your mind is a battlefield. Every day, every moment, competing forces fight for control. Discipline versus temptation. Purpose versus distraction. Courage versus fear. Focus versus noise. Action versus excuses. If the mind is weak, your entire life becomes reactive. Every emotion becomes a command. Every impulse becomes an order. Every distraction becomes a detour. But if the mind is strong, your life becomes intentional. You choose your thoughts. You choose your reactions. You choose your actions. You choose your emotional state. The Stoics believed mastery of the mind was the highest human achievement. Not wealth, not status, not recognition. Self-government, self-command, self-mastery. And here is the truth. You cannot master the world if you cannot first master your mind. To strengthen the mind, you must practice 3 disciplines. 1. The discipline of perception. See events clearly, without distortion. Replace emotion with observation. Ask, what is actually happening, not what I imagine? 2. The discipline of action. Do the right thing, at the right time, for the right reason, even when it is difficult. 3. The discipline of will. Endure what must be endured. Embrace discomfort. Turn suffering into strength. These 3 disciplines form mental armor. This is the mind of a Stoic warrior. V.
The art of self-denial, a forgotten superpower. Modern society worships indulgence. Everything is instant, effortless, pleasurable, convenient. But the Stoics practiced something radical: self-denial. Not as punishment, but as preparation. Because when you voluntarily deny yourself comfort, comfort can no longer control you. If you can say no to unhealthy food, to your phone, to constant entertainment, to laziness, to needless comfort, to unproductive habits, then you can say yes to discipline, clarity, purpose, ambition, strength, and growth. Self-denial builds the muscle of self-command, and a man who can command himself is unstoppable. VII, the principle of one more. How greatness is built. Every Stoic warrior followed a simple rule: do more than is comfortable every day. If you planned to read 10 pages, read 11. If you planned to do 20 push-ups, do 21. If you planned to work for 1 hour, work for 70 minutes. Why? Because every time you do one more, you prove to your mind that you are not the old self. You show yourself, I don't stop when I'm tired. I stop when I'm finished. The one more principle builds resilience, mental toughness, pride, identity, unstoppable momentum. And once momentum begins, discipline becomes natural. Action becomes automatic. Progress becomes effortless. Momentum is the engine of transformation. VIII. Your environment must evolve with you. You cannot become a new person while living in the environment that created the old one. Your environment is not neutral. It shapes you. Who you spend time with, what you watch, what you listen to, what you tolerate, where you live, what you keep in your space, the noise around you, the habits you are exposed to. A man who wants to rise must protect his environment like a fortress. Remove what weakens you, add what strengthens you. Keep what nourishes your mind, eliminate what drains your soul. Your environment must match your ambition. Otherwise, your old life will pull your new identity back into mediocrity. VIII.